the last 2 years, Fortnite has been dominated by one name.
Peterbot, Ritual, Cole. Peterbot reclaims his title. Records being set here, NNA, from Peterbot and Pollo, baby.
However, as some of you may know, Peterbot has recently fallen into some controversy that could potentially get him banned from the biggest tournament of the year. So today, I'm going to break down what happens to Peterbot's trio if he gets banned, and who I think has the best chance of taking home the FNCS Global Championship Trophy. Peterbot, along with his trio Cold and Ritual, have absolutely destroyed the competition this year, getting second place in Major 1, first place in Major 2, and first place once again just a few days ago in Major 3.
He has to see the side shot come through, and Iamzo tags him once. Iamzo's gonna get the siphon too. The jump shot, he's invisible. Peterbot can't be seen, can't be tracked, misses the siphon. Iamzo's still in the game, but Ritual stands and wins the game by a heel off in the end. And just like that, Jacob, they do it again.
But recently, a video of Peterbot got leaked from a couple years back where he was saying some pretty inappropriate things. I'm not going to go into the details of the video because honestly, I don't want this to be a drama channel. I'm only bringing this up to give you guys context as to why we're talking about this in the first place. Anyways, since this happened, the internet is kind of blown up about it, and there's one specific question the Fortnite community has been asking. Will Peter be banned from Globals? Obviously, it wasn't a good look for him, but at the same time, this was a few years ago, and he was a kid, so if he's really grown up and grown from this, I think he deserves the chance to play. That being said, it's not really my decision or any of yours, it's really up to Epic Games and the Fortnite overlords. And if for some reason they do decide that what he did was bad enough to be banned, we would have one of the first Peterbot-less lands in 3 years. So what exactly would that look like? Well, first of all, Cold and Ritual would now be down a member of their trio. And I went through all of the official FNCS 2025 rules to see what would happen if Peterbot was disqualified. And the crazy thing is they don't have any official clear rules for what would happen if someone gets disqualified this far into the season. So after reading the entire rulebook and doing my best to deduce what actually would happen, I'm gonna throw out 2 different theories as to what I think would happen if Peterbot gets banned. The first option, which is the most unfortunate of all of them, is that they wouldn't be allowed to fill Peterbot's spot. And although this sounds a little bit drastic, it is possible because we've seen something like this happen before. Back in 2023, Epic Games held the yearly global event in Copenhagen, Denmark. And there was a ton of drama behind the scenes, specifically around one duo. Bucky and his duo Okis were able to qualify during Major 3 for the Global Championships in 2023.
Nice.
Nice.
Nice! Nice! Way to be! Oh my God! Oh my God! We qualified! Oh my God! We qualified! Oh my God! I'm going to Copenhagen!
But unfortunately, once Bucky arrived in Copenhagen, he wasn't there for long. As he talked about in my interview with him, he was randomly disqualified from participating in the tournament, specifically for breaking the Fortnite Code of Conduct rule, no toxic behavior.
Yeah, I was disqualified for, making inappropriate comments about Epic employees and women on stream.
This happened just moments before Bucky was supposed to compete, and unfortunately his duo Okis was left to go out completely alone.
The game, you hear the chants of the crowd going loud. They're ready to make some noise.
So take it all in, enjoy the walk down.
I can't watch this,
today.
bro. I can't watch this, bro.
Is next.
That actually
A
is
duo
hurt,
that
bro.
if you had said they're going into the lower bracket.
And of course, as you can imagine, Okis would finish dead last because he's playing as a solo against 49 of the best duos in the world. However, if we look back to the situation with Bucky, he got banned right before the tournament happened. However, in this case, we'd know at least a few weeks ahead of time if Peter was going to get banned. So in this case, it means they could probably have a backup player step in. So as I said, there's not an exact rule that describes what happens if someone gets disqualified. However, there are backup players in case somebody gets sick. Specifically, Epic will pick players that are from the same region where the tournament is being hosted. In this case, that's EU. The reason that they do this is so that they don't have to pay to fly out players from NA or OCE if there is a situation where they need to use a backup player where the tournament is taking place in Europe. I'll throw up the entire list of players here on the screen, but there are a few players that I want to highlight as being top choices if Cold and Ritual need to pick somebody. In my personal opinion, I think Teeny is the best player on this list who hasn't qualified for globals, with Vidil and Trulex being two of my other favorite players that I would pick. However, every single player on this list would probably do a great job filling in. That being said, none of them are Peterbot. As we all know, Peter is the best player in the world, and I'm interested to see what would actually happen if Peterbot did have a Phil come into play with his trio. And on top of these players not being as skilled as Peterbot, it's a huge disadvantage to play with somebody you don't know because your chemistry will be way thrown off. That being said, if Peterbot is out of his trio, in my opinion, I think it would be safe to say that Cold and Ritual will have a slim to little chance of actually winning. And that means in this hypothetical case, everyone else for the first time in the last couple years will actually have a very good chance at getting first place at globals. So let's talk about what would actually happen in this scenario. Who are the best trios from all the regions across the world? Well, in my opinion, I think the answer is pretty obvious, and it comes down to just 2 or 3 trios that I'll go over right now. I think the first one I have to talk about is Peterbot's ex-duo, his biggest rival, Pollo.
The difference of 14 points. Only 14 points was the difference. Congratulations to your Major 1 champions. Agers, Acorn, and Pollo. 14 points separated that win.
Pollo, along with his trio of Acorn and Agers, are probably the best trio outside of Peter and his team. I mean, if we look at this past grand finals, it's obvious that they can at least go toe-to-toe and keep up with Peterbot's team. And don't just sit around waiting for Peterbot to get banned to see if these guys have a chance, because even if Peter and his full trio is playing, I think we're going to have one of the more competitive grand finals that we've had in a few years, specifically because of Pollo and his trio. However, there is another trio that I want to talk about, and they're not from NA Central. See, I do this thing on my channel where I tend to talk about mostly North American players, and honestly, it's because that's where most of my viewers are from, but I wanted to give a huge shout out to probably one of the best trios in the world, from EU, Vino, Flixie, and Vico. With EU being probably the most competitive region that we have on Fortnite, they won Major 1, placed 6th in Major 2, and got 2nd in Major 3. Not to mention that all 3 of these guys have ample experience playing at LAN events. On top of that, they have another secret weapon, which is the fact that they already live in Europe. They won't have to deal with multi-day plane rides and jet lag when they're trying to play and show up to be their best. So with a ton of FNCS wins under their belt, I think this is one of the best teams in the world, and we definitely have to keep our eye out for them. In addition to our European team, there are also some other teams on other regions that have a really good chance of getting a win. First, I want to go to Brazil to talk about the trio of King, Phaser, and Fizin. These guys have been absolutely dominating this entire year. On the Brazilian region, they won the Major 1 Grand Finals and placed 5th during Major 2. And because they did so well, they decided to fly to NA Central to try and qualify for the Grands here in America. Not only did they qualify, but the 3 of them placed 9th on the region, which is pretty insane considering they've never even played on North America before. On top of all of this, you guys may remember King from the Fortnite World Cup many years ago, where he won over $1 million at just 13 years old. On top of that, he has a following of 1.2 million followers, and this guy actually has a couple of wins under his belt, unlike his NA counterpart, Clicks. And by having some FNCS wins, I mean he has won 6 times. Up until Major 3, that means he would have been tied with Peterbot. Of course, the Brazilian region isn't quite as competitive, but I do think these guys have an incredible chance of winning, especially if Peterbot isn't able to play. And Brazil isn't the only region we need to talk about, because as many of you know, there is one player on the OCE region that definitely has a chance of putting the NA and EU players to shame. And his name is Alex. Many people on my channel love Alex, and this video of him happens to be one of my most popular of all time. Alongside of his trio of Anon and Resigns, Alex has been absolutely dominating the OCE region. Although they would only finish second in Major 1, Alex would get first place in both Major 2 and Major 3 of OCE Grand Finals. Although he hasn't had the best performances at LAN so far, I think he finally has a trio that has the same level of skills as he does, and he'll be able to put on an absolute show when they get to France. The craziest part out of all of this that many people don't know is that Alex actually has more FNCS wins than any other player in the history of Fortnite. Peterbot only has 6 wins, as does King. However, Alex has 7 different FNCS first place titles, not to mention at least 3 second places. But heading back to NA for a second, there's one last team that I want to talk to you guys about who I think probably have a great chance of winning with or without Peterbot in this competition, and that is Bolts, Kanata, and Rapid. These guys have been constantly overshadowed all season by Peterbot and Pollo, but they've been placing insanely well all season. With a 6th place in Major 1, a 7th place in Major 2, and then a 3rd place in Major 3, this is definitely a team we need to look out for. While I think there are a few teams that have done statistically better than these guys, we all know that Bolts and Rapid have really good chemistry, and Kanata is one of the best players in Fortnite history who has the most FNCS Grand Finals under his belt. So with all of these things playing for them, I wouldn't be surprised if we hear their name a lot during the Global Championship. So with all that being said, I really hope that Peter doesn't get banned because I want to see the best players play. And if we're looking at this objectively, I think Peterbot made a huge mistake, but it was a couple years ago when he was a kid, and if he has changed like he said he has, then I think he deserves every chance to prove that he's a better person now. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any ideas for which video I should do next, comment that down below. Make sure to like and subscribe, and click right here if you want to watch another one of my videos right now. I'll see you in the next one. Peace!